Hello, and welcome to everyone. My thanks to all of you for joining today's webinar. My name is Greg Cote. I'm a product manager for the Routing and Switching certification track, and this means that my main responsibility as a product manager is to ensure that the routing and switching certifications are all aligned with the job roles that they relate to at the various levels, and that they remain up to date in terms of the technologies and skills that are being validated by these certifications. So with me today on the panel is Don Harper, who is the marketing manager for the Routing and Switching certification track. Don's also responsible for creating and coordinating the communications, the messaging, and all of the critical information that's related to our certifications and the corresponding training products. And we also have with us today Nikita, who is a content engineer from our training development team. And Nikita actually worked very closely on the design and the development of this latest CCNP route and switch courses. And in fact, she is herself a CCIE in routing and switching. So we're happy to have everyone on the panel. Before I get started in the actual agenda, let me cover briefly some of the housekeeping items related to this webinar. First off, the webcast is being broadcast through something called a Flex console, right? And you can see that you have control of the views in front of you. You can resize any of these windows just by dragging the corners. And this will become important when we get into the demonstration that Nikita will be sharing. Down at the bottom of the screen, you see there's a taskbar, and each of those icons on the taskbar is assigned to a specific function. And if you're not sure what the particular icon does, just hover over it with your mouse, and a box will pop up that explains what that function is. And then for those of you who want to ask questions, you can participate by just actually ask questions at any time during the webcast. Just type it into the Ask a Question area, as some of you have done already, and then click the Submit button. We'll answer as many of these questions as possible, as we go along, and then when we get to the Q&A session at the end of the presentation, we'll cover the remaining items. Also, there are going to be a couple of polling and questions during the webcast where we would like to get your feedback. And so these will appear in the slide presentation window. You'll see them, like I said, sprinkled throughout the presentation. And just simply choose the response from the options and then click on the Submit Answer button. And then we'll collect the data and respond from that. And then if you're not going to be able to stay with us for the entire 90-minute session, or you want to go back later and review a topic from the webinar, this event is being recorded, and it will be available on demand within approximately 48 hours. And then last, note that the PowerPoint slides are embedded within the presentation, so those will not be available separately. There will be links or slides with links that are sent out that you'll see in the presentation that you're probably most interested in, so we will make those available to you. So let me show you what we have up for an agenda today. Over the next roughly 90 minutes, myself and Don and Nikita will be providing you with information related to our certifications. You can see the agenda is kind of broken into three main sections. We'll start off first by sharing some recent data that's related to why certifications matter, including the skills that are most in demand, what we hear from hiring managers' viewpoint. And then I'll also talk about the various networking areas that your skills can be applied in. I'll talk about the value of certifications from our industry survey metrics. Don will be giving or sharing a few of the success stories from some certified individuals, so you can get a direct perspective from these folks. And then we'll switch over and focus on the routing and switching CCNP certification that I know many of you are considering or may have already started to pursue. And we'll what we want to do here is briefly introduce you to the types of questions that you could expect, really just to help calibrate you on the depth of knowledge. Some of you are coming up from a CCNA level. So it'll be helpful, I hope, to understand the depth of knowledge that would be needed or expected by someone who's pursuing this certification. And then Nikita's going to take us through some representative lab trainings and a demonstration, and hopefully help to sort of demystify the troubleshooting exam. I mean, that's something new for a lot of you if you've, like I said, come up from the CCNA level. And so we want to be able to give you a sense of the help you understand what you can expect, and then really give you a sense of how you should prepare and sort of get your thinking aligned with the exam structure that's related to the T-Shoot exam. And then after that, Don will take us through some of the preparation resources that are available to you. We have some great products that have come out with the latest version 2 of CCNP. Many of those have hands-on lab trainings that will be a huge help, right, to really cement and learn the concepts and the behaviors that you're not only going to need to become certified, but also something that will remain with you, so you can use that throughout your journey as a network engineer. And we'll wrap up at the end, roughly the last 30 minutes, and cover off, like I mentioned, all of the Q&A questions that we have not addressed, up to that point. So with that, I get started. So there's obviously a high demand for networking skills. And this first slide, which I need to advance here to build out, includes data from several recent studies. And now all of these continue to show that networking skills are in demand. There's no sign of this slowing down. On the left-hand side, you see the top 5. We asked IT managers about the areas in which they're having the most difficulty finding skilled talent. And you can notice how many of these top 5 are actually related directly to routing and switching. Right? You get the network engineering, systems engineering, IT architecture, and the network operations are all direct matches for route and switch, and those round out the top 5 talent areas that are most in demand today. In the middle, you see the recruiting technology talent. So the dimension here is that 61% of U.S. CIOs told us that's somewhat or even very challenging to find skilled IT professionals. So the technology executives that were surveyed here reported, you can see in that those 3 bars down there in the middle, that it's most difficult to find the right skilled talent in the functional areas of application development. 17% cited that. And then networking is tied at 17%. So, those are in fact the top 2 challenge areas, and then security at 12%. And then on the right-hand side, the 57% metric relates to the technology executives in the U.S. who said that network administration tops the list of skills that are in greatest demand within their RT departments. So you can see, from these metrics that the demand for networking skills obviously remains high, and that these skills are actually still in short supply. So just something to consider and, hopefully take comfort in as you continue on your path along routing and switching. Now this next chart is technology areas that are of interest, based on the latest IT skills report from Global Knowledge. And this is the list of areas where enterprises are going to be making their biggest investments to fund new projects. And again, here you can see the top 5 technology areas. All can be related to routing and switching as a foundation. So having routing and switching skills does provide the base for any networking career or path that you choose. I just want to reinforce that with this additional data. And then, we know what employers and hiring managers are looking for, and we also wanted to hear from you in terms of, what technology areas are of most interest to you in the coming 2015. And you can see in this pie chart that the technologies that were of greatest interest to folks who registered for the webinar, since the majority of you indicated interest or strongest interest in routing and switching, we've structured, obviously, a portion of this webinar to help guide you forward on that path. But however, it's worth noting that three of these 5 areas on the chart, routing and switching, security, and also wireless, all use the ICND1 blueprint and exam as their base requirement, right, for the respective CCNAs. So it's again, there's a commonality in terms of the skill set that that stretches across all of the technology areas. Even I'd say collaboration and data center rely on some understanding of the routing and switching subject matter. So there's multiple directions that you can move toward, all with the existing skills that you've started to build in routing and switching. So this is a simple chart, but I think the key points are obviously this is something you've been hearing for a while now. It continues to ring true that the pace of technology, network technology evolution really does require that you keep your skills current. There is no substitute for continuous learning, and one way to think about how to do that, or how to sort of guide you in that way, is Cisco certifications can provide you with a sort of a framework for this evolution. And the reason we can do that, or they can do that for you, is these are all based on actual job roles within the industry. So there's it's a good template or guide in terms of the subject matter and the expectations, right, for these various job roles. And the fact that they are anchored to a specific job role is very key. And we call our certifications career certifications for that reason. There's a distinction that some people are aware of, others are not. And if you've started to look around, maybe you've actually acquired other vendors' certifications or are considering, well, a lot of times what you'll see is that the career certification is sort of a pseudo job role aligned certification, and it's even in a lot of cases strongly a product sort of a product training type certification. So it's focused on, it was built for the sales force in a lot of these cases, and so the emphasis is making sure that the particular platform specific capabilities and features and speeds, dimensions, etc., are all really well understood. Well, that's great for a sales audience that needs to have that understanding. But if you think about probably where you work or where you've worked in the past, and think about the first of all, the platform variations are wide. Infrastructure changes over time. Having really detailed knowledge about a specific platform is helpful when you're actually, the key person to roll that out and deploy it. But in most cases, you're better off having a protocol level understanding, the mechanisms, the technologies, the things that really make the network work, and that are going to remain in place and valid year after year. And so again, that's a key distinction between the career certifications that Cisco offers and some of the competitor certifications that cover different segments of the industry. So as I mentioned, you can think about these as a developmental roadmap. That is the Cisco certifications, and equally important, what we're saying in the middle here is that these certifications absolutely provide a validation of your expertise. Right? It's the only thing that can provide a similar kind of validation would be a university science degree or an engineering degree. in terms of having a credible and widely recognized stamp of your capabilities. Really, Cisco certifications are second to none. If you talk to a hiring manager in IT, they're going to be totally familiar with a Cisco certification. If you look on, any of the job sites recently, or anytime over the past years, you'll see in majority of cases when there's a network engineering role of some sort, there usually is a Cisco certification at some level that's also included either as a requirement or something that's strongly desired. So again, it means something to the world. It's not a sort of a niche certification that everyone doesn't understand. It's absolutely universal, and it absolutely is a credible validation of your skills. And then last, it's again, it's a little cliche, but I think everyone will agree that it's all about staying relevant. It's it comes, and where do you get to this point of wanting to learn more? It really just comes with that desire. You've gotten interested in new technologies. You want to take ownership of your networking journey, and so if you've not looked on the Cisco.com website with our certifications recently, take a look at that. I mean, we've really got the broadest range of career certifications. We've got specializations in the industry, across all of the technology areas. So again, take a few minutes if you haven't. Just look across the spectrum of topics that we cover, and I'm certain that you'll find something new and interesting that will motivate you and give you something to work toward. And if we get into the specifics of the routing and switching certification levels, right? We've got entry, associate, professional, and expert. And there's a continuum, right, from left to right in terms of people's experience and, the point in their career at which people take the different certifications and, and put their sights on the different certifications. So from the left-hand side, I think many of you know firsthand, right, that the responsibilities can vary tremendously for someone who has a CCNA. You could be a new hire who is racking and stacking, performing basic configs. If you work in a particularly large enterprise environment, or you could be on the other end in terms of scale, and you could be a network associate or a network engineer who's actually responsible for the entire operations, pretty much everything, soup to nuts. If you work in a small medium business SMB kind of environment, so your job role is obviously going to depend on the size of the company and the size of the IT staff, right? And then if you go towards the center, CCNP is for network engineers who typically are somewhere in the 3 to 5 years of experience phase of their journey, right? So these are professionals who can take ownership of the network really across the entire life cycle. So again, depending on the size of the organization, the CCNP could be a key contributor, right, to designing something, a new network, or maybe a merging of existing networks. They would certainly play a key role, right, in any upgrades or, obviously when new releases, new features come out, new services are rolled out, CCNP would be front and center in those instances. And really in any size network, small or large, these people would be deeply involved, right, in all types of troubleshooting. All of the challenging cases and tickets that get generated would end up in the hands of a CCNP. It's usually the sort of the buck stops here. And then obviously the day-to-day operations, whatever's needed to ensure that the network stays up, it's reliable, and it's, most importantly, it's able to meet the business requirements of the enterprise. So that's, again, there's a spread of responsibilities, and the role is a bit varied, but those are the general you know, points at which the CCNP would extend would be the primary responsible party. And if you go off to the right towards the expert level, well, CCIE really does it does not just graphically, but in reality, take you to the top of the routing and switching skills pyramid, right? You're probably all aware that this is a very, very difficult, but it's a worthwhile investment in your time, effort, and money, right? For really anyone who plans to follow and stay on the route and switch path. And if you really want to be recognized as an expert in networking, CCIE is the holy grail. It really is where you want to end up. And if you've just if you're fairly new in your career or you've not really looked much into the CCIE, take a couple of minutes and look around the CLN, or the Cisco Learning Network, right? And within the Cisco Learning Network, there's some CCIE pages. You'll find success stories. You'll find links to people's blogs describing their journey, to get to the CCIE level. And they're worth a read because it'll really sort of make you appreciate why that is such a sought-after certification, why people work towards it for years in some cases, hundreds of hours of training time and preparation. And it may also motivate you to go after it. So it's definitely worth understanding sort of the mindset and the journey that the CCIE travels, even if you're not planning on taking yourself toward that point right now. So let me cover a couple more points here. This next step slide, we included a table here to show really we have a large pool of Cisco certified individuals. We wanted to get their feedback on how they view the benefits of having a certification. Does it make me stand out? Was it worth the effort? Those kinds of things. So in this survey, we asked them to select areas that they felt their certification helped them. And from this, you can see, obviously there's personal gratification. There's peer and manager recognition that comes with it, along with hiring and salary benefits that come from being certified. So just to sort of give you the voice of our large certification pool and what they view as the key takeaways from becoming certified. You can also see that if you compare the two color bars, the green and the blue here, that from CCNA to CCNP, those people who got their CCNP felt that it helped them in these different areas even more strongly. So if you look top to bottom, they even have more of a consider that to be more of a benefit to each of those goals. So again, just some anecdotal information, and then when we get further along in the webinar, Don's going to share a couple of success stories, and those will give you also some insight into how these people view the benefits of being certified. Yeah, not much to say here except for there's a very striking metric down on the right-hand side, right? So having a Cisco certification really does increase your earning potential, right? This salary premiums for those people who are certified can be up to 9% higher for the network admin role compared to someone who does not have a certification. So this metric, by the way, has been between 6 and 10% for probably the last 10 plus years. And if you consider that this, that magnitude of a salary premium, that can amount to over $100,000 additional income when you add the premium across your entire working career. And so the point is just simply that there's definitely a measurable value to being certified. And we want people to recognize that and be aware of it. And I'll finish off here by showing some salary data related to routing and switching across the levels. So 2 key points, I think, from this slide. First, look at the change in salary as you go, up through the different levels between the CCNP and the CCIE, 70 to 118,000 salary range. CCNP right about 97. But if you look at the delta just between a CCNA and a CCNP, there's a variation, but it's typically over a $10,000 per year increase. So this is the data that we get from Global Knowledge. It has a yearly salary survey, and this is from the 2015 survey. And that survey targets individuals with all different types of certifications. And in this last readout in 2015, the survey I think included 1,400 individuals, with 1 or more Cisco certifications. So the sample size is quite large, and it's meaningful data. And then the second point you can see on the slide that's worth noting is that after quite a few years now of IT salaries remaining mostly flat, there's finally been a respectable increase between, you can see on the right-hand bottom center, that between 2014 and 15, in the case of the CCNP level, which is sort of the row that's titled Network Engineer, that would be the alignment in terms of career maturity for a CCNP, the year-over-year increase for them was 5.5% between 2014 and 15. So very respectable salary increase just over the past 12 months. And then the other takeaway, I think, is that the data does show that even with all of the new, there's a lot of shiny and new IT roles that have been created, but the traditional networking job role remains, remains on the higher end of the salary spectrum. So, it's not losing steam, it's not losing prestige, it's very much in demand, and again, the salary metrics support that. So I'm going to now hand over to Dawn Harper, who's going to talk with a few individuals about their own experience and their perceptions that are related to the Cisco certifications. Dawn?
Yeah, thank you, Greg. Welcome everyone. So would like to have you hear a little bit from folks who have actually earned their CCNP routing and switching certifications. So the first we will hear from Brett Larkin, who is a senior network engineer at Cirium Networks. He actually was not able to be with us today, but we do have his kind of success story that you can hear, so we'll go ahead and play that for you now. A journey of a Cisco certified professional who has CCNP routing and switching certification. Brett Larkin is with us today and is going to tell us a little bit about himself and his journey to CCNP routing and switching. Welcome, Brett. Please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, Don. Thanks for having me. So I am a senior network engineer for Cirium Networks. We specialize in network and voice solutions. I'm also the channel technical lead for the route, switch, and wireless practice.
Great. You'll see on the screen we have one question. How was achieving CCNP routing and switching certification really helped you in your career?
So it was after I got my CCNP that I actually got my first big break. I was a contractor working for Chrysler at the time, and I wanted to transfer to the headquarters location and get a position on the Cisco support team. And it was actually after I obtained my CCNP certification that the IT manager was actually willing to talk to me and consider me for the position. The NP certification helped me prepare for that interview, but more importantly, it helped me prepare and build the skills I needed to actually do that job and that position and take care of the projects and the trouble tickets that I would be tasked with.
Awesome. So what value do you place on your CCNP routing and switching certification?
I place quite a bit of value on the CCNP, not just for myself, but for other candidates too. Over the last 10 years, I've had the opportunity to interview several different people for network admin and network engineer positions. And I know that when I see a CCNP route and switch certification on somebody's resume, that I can gauge a certain skill set and level that that candidate's going to possess. While I do believe that there's a lot of credibility to the CCNA certification, I'm really quite honestly looking more for CCNP type candidates because I know that they're going to be able to work a little bit more independently and have a little bit higher skill set than the CCNA would.
Okay, great. So can you tell us, how did you prepare for your CCNP certification?
Well, at the time, we didn't have a lot of the different tools that we have now for the self-study type of studying. I practice using mostly the Cisco Pressbooks and some simulators, some lab equipment that I purchased and put together. I ended up building most of my lab off of actual hardware, which got a little expensive and was a little bit more difficult to do than some of the tools you have now. Nowadays, you've got things like Viral and the CCIE Lab Builder and other emulators out there that you can use, along with the Cisco 360 track. There's a lot of really good training videos and a lot of material out there that you have to use.
That's great. Good to hear that you've really got some tools now as you've kind of moved along on your journey, even as you're moving forward, to help you to either self-study or do labs on your own, which I think is great as you do this, kind of carve out some time to prepare. Next question is what other Cisco certifications do you currently hold?
So in addition to the NP, I've also got my CCDP and my CCNA voice and my CCNA wireless.
Awesome. So last question, are you pursuing any other Cisco certifications now, and kind of tell us what they are and how you're preparing for those?
Sure. I'm currently working on my CCIE route and switch. I passed the written, and now I'm preparing for the lab. I'm actually preparing for my second attempt in the lab. And because of my schedule and because of the workload, I am pursuing this mostly with self-study type tools. But I'm using the CCIE Lab Builder that Cisco offers and the 360 learning program for a lot of the different practice labs and those types of tools.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Brett, for sharing your story and letting us know about your journey and how you're looking to actually continue on your journey to CCIE. And we wish you the best of luck, and thank you again for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm glad you were able to hear from Brett. We also wanted to let you hear from our next success story, and that is Charles Stizza. He is with us today. So Charles, first, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I work here at Cisco. My primary job role is delivering trainings in the area of routing and switching. Also, I'll be working on the data center switching team as well. So I get the opportunity to deliver a lot of trainings in the domain of routing and switching, but also I'll be supporting, I support our customers as well too in data center switching technologies.
Okay, cool. So let's talk a little bit about kind of these questions that I think everyone has seen. I think we'll go through this one question at a time. So how has achieving your CCNP routing and switching certification really helped you in your career?
Sure, yeah. So there's really kind of two or three things that sticks out. The first one is it gives, when you put that certification on your resume, there is a certain level of credibility you gain instantly when people see that, because it does carry, the CCNP and Cisco certification in general has a certain reputation, and so putting that there really gave me more visibility. The second thing is that there were just some really immediate financial, both long-term and immediate financial benefits for having the certification. I mean, the fact of the matter is that, as was already mentioned, is that you can command a higher salary because of the skills that you bring to the table. People are willing to pay you, employers are willing to pay you more, generally speaking, by having certification. And then I think the third thing is that just the intellectual satisfaction of having the achievement and being able to get that credential. It's very rewarding when you work very hard to get certification and you learn all the technologies and features. And sometimes you take the exam and don't pass the first time. You just keep at it. But persevering and actually accomplishing that just has been intellectually satisfying.
Awesome. So what value do you place on this certification? I think you've spoken to that a little, but maybe expand on that a little bit more.
Yeah, sure. So again, it's really getting my CCNP, and I have a number of certifications, both Cisco and non-Cisco, but the CCNP is really one of those highlights in my career. I worked very hard at it for about 6 months, and it's one of those things where it's very important to me. And again, the most important thing, of course, is having those skills that are on that blueprint and being able to be in that CCNP level of troubleshooting and being able to perform at that level. So in other words, really it's not just about getting that piece of paper. It's really about the process of actually the process of learning and growing, becoming a better engineer. So having that, I think, kind of works hand in hand with not only just kind of achieving it, but also the process of actually getting it and actually making yourself a better engineer by the knowledge you gain from having that stamp.
Okay. And so how did you prepare? Did you just go and take it without any preparation, or were you able to, how did you prepare? How did you study? Well, it sounds like you said it took about 6 months. So what did you do to get you on that path?
Yeah, so and I actually started, let me give a little context here. I started my CCNP right after my CCNA, and I kind of took the same approach. I got the book, and the Cisco Press book, and I read through it, practiced technologies, and I had a home lab, and I practiced on that, and then I went and took the first exam, the routing exam, and I failed it miserably, because what it made me realize is that the CCNP is a much more difficult in terms of the knowledge you need to know. You need to be much more thorough than the CCNA. And so what I did was I went back to the drawing board and I got the Cisco Praxis certification guides. I also got there's at least, there's a number of Cisco Press books, and I got the command reference, and then I made sure that my lab was sufficient. And at the time, this was about 6 years ago. We didn't have access to IOL or anything. I was a non-Cisco employee, so I used a real physical hardware lab. And I set all the technologies up, and I just made sure that I was really expert level at those things on the blueprint. And so the blueprint was really the guide for example, if it said BGP or OSPF, I made sure I really understood how that protocol worked, made sure configure it, troubleshoot it, set it up, and just got a really good hands-on knowledge. So I would say just a few random, things that are important is the Cisco Press book's very good, the exam blueprint, and also having a lab to practice it on. I'd say those are the top 2 things that really, really, in terms of actual resources, those are the things that I think were really crucial for me.
Awesome. And so what other Cisco certifications do you currently hold?
So as I mentioned, of course, I have the CCNA. And then I have a few other, there's another certification, a Cisco Express Foundation, and there's a few other certifications that are kind of like partner certifications. I'm also working on my CCIE. I have the written done, and I'm working on the lab. So of course, the CCIE is a multi-year process. So, but yeah, so currently in terms of the mainline Cisco certifications, CCENT, CCNA, and then of course the CCNP, and then I'm working on the CCIE.
Okay, awesome. And then I think the last question here, just to wrap it up, is, I think you actually just answered this for us. So you are working, towards your CCIE. And, as I guess one of the things I would like to ask that is not here is, why are you looking to go to that route? Are you just wanting to really kind of go to the pinnacle and show that you have that superior level expertise in routing and switching? Is that your goal at this point?
Yeah, exactly. And so I think the way you phrase that is very important. You don't get the certification to make yourself an expert or whatever professional engineer. The certification should validate your knowledge. And so I definitely want that CCIE to bring it to the next level, very well respected in the industry. just to validate the expert level, hopefully expert level knowledge of those protocols and those technologies that are tested on the exam. So it's really to validate that expert level of knowledge and get that recognition. And of course, there's lots of reward with that. Like CCNP, the CCIE is highly recognized. So yeah, that's my motivation there, just to bring it to that next level.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Charles, for spending some time with us today and telling us about your story and what worked for you. And everyone on the webinar, I hope you value what you have heard from folks who have found success with CCNP routing and switching, and also found different ways that they could prepare, and then where they're going in their future down their path, and how they can help guide you down that path, and how we're going to do that with you today. So thank you again, Charles. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. Take care.
Thank you. Okay, so now I would like to pass it over to Nikita, who is with us today, to talk about CCNP routing and switching. And this is going to be the interactive part of our session, in which she will go over the subject matter or the exam topics, like we just mentioned, that Charles was alluding to for CCNP routing and switching, and then do about 3 or 4 actual practice questions. So you can gauge your expertise there. So Nikita, over to you.
Thank you, Don. Hey, hi. So I'm going to take you through the CCNP routing and switching certification. So we'll talk in detail what exams you need to take for this certification and how it helps you. So I've been seeing a lot of questions on what is the next step, after doing your CCNA. So the answer is CCNP. If you're really interested in, the routing, switching, networking field, it actually builds a very strong foundation for your CCIE, which is the expert level certification that we have. So let's look at what are the exams that you need to clear to get your CCNP. So the first one is the route exam. So route consists of all the topics that we have in routing. Like in CCNA also we cover a couple of route topics. For example, we have static routing, we cover EIGRP, and we cover OSPF. While when we go to CCNP route, all these topics are covered in lot more detail, and what we focus on is troubleshooting, debugging. Like just for example, if we take EIGRP, we cover some basics in EIGRP and a little bit of troubleshooting in EIGRP for CCNA. But when we move to CCNP route, there we have more of EIGRP, in that we'll have summarization, stub routing, also redistribution. So these are a few more things that you're going to learn, and also what you learn in a lot of depth is how you troubleshoot the network. So that again is covered a lot and gives you very good practice after doing your route, switch, and T-shoot exam. So switch, again we have all the switching topics here, and we have a separate exam here dedicated to just troubleshooting. So whatever you learn from all the topics from CCNA, route, switch, we cover all that topics together in T-shoot and give you scenarios to troubleshoot. And these scenarios are very close to the real world networking issues that you see. So it gives you a very good practice, not just for the exam, but also gets you ready for the network issues that you see in the real world. Now next I would like to move to some of the courses that we have for CCNP routing and switching. We have a lot of courses like the instructor-led training, with the e-learning training, then Cisco learning labs that we've created for the to get you ready for CCNP routing and switching. And in this new course, with the version 2 that we have for routing and switching, we've designed these courses keeping in view that they should be more lab-based and you get more hands-on experience. As Charles also just told us that having more hands-on experience on lab helps you to get these certifications as well. So the way we've designed all 3 new courses is that all these labs are virtual, and you can spin these labs any number of times, and you can access the devices, you can run debugs on these devices, and you can see how exactly a protocol works. And also there are some challenge labs here, which you can see how whether you've learned the topic really well. So let's move on to the next. As I just told you, in this courses we have this discovery labs and challenge labs. So the discovery labs are based on the concept of learning through labs. Here for each and every protocol we show you in the lab, like for EIGRP we give you access to 2 routers, and you see how hello packets are being exchanged, and then you run debugs and look at how exactly the neighborship is built. So that helps you learn these protocols in in a better way, and you learn a lot about by seeing and doing these lab exercises. Apart from that, then we have these challenge labs. These are some of them are graded labs where we give you a scenario, and based on the scenario you need to troubleshoot the issues, and then we also explain you what are the best ways to troubleshoot and go about and approach a problem. So I will also be sharing a demo for that. Next we're going to move on to some of the multiple choice questions here, and these questions are from CCNP routing switching courses, and I've tried to pick some questions on topics that you've already covered in CCNA. You'll see these polling questions, and you can submit your answers, and I'll also share the answers with you. Okay, so here's the first question. EIGRP for IPv6 uses which multicast address? So you can go ahead and submit your answer. So in CCNP, so in CCNA what we see is there are so in CCNA we do cover IPv6 routing, but in CCNP you will see it is covered in a lot more detail. And here you can see the answer here is this one, FF02::A. So as you know, for EIGRP for IPv4 it is 224.0.0.10. So similarly for IPv6, if you convert it in hexadecimal, it is A. So in CCNP, we go ahead and cover a lot of IPv6 routing. There in CCNA we just covered very basics of it. Here we go ahead and cover a lot more of that. Now let's move on to the next question. Which two LSAs describe intra-area routing information? So this is for OSPF. So you can choose two answers here. So intra-area is within the same area. So again, in when we are teaching you OSPF in CCNA, we just teach you very basics. But here, when we go to CCNP, each and every LSA is taught in a lot of detail. You also run a lot of debugs and also learn how to troubleshoot issues related to LSAs. So that's how it is different from CCNA. Okay, so the answer here is router and network LSA, which is type 1 and type 2. I think most of you have got it right. So the first one here, summary LSA, that is for inter-area routes that is there. It's for the ABR. Then external 1 and external 2, as you know, is for when we redistribute another routing protocol to OSPF. That's where we have external 1 and external 2. That is also not used within the same area. Okay, let's move to the next one. What is the first HSRP state that interfaces will be in just after HSRP is enabled? So we have active, speak, learn, listen, standby, and initial. The answer here is initial. So again, when we are learning HSRP in CCNP, you will see that you learn each and every state in a lot of detail, because when you are facing any problem in your network, you need to troubleshoot, you need to look at run debugs and see which state it is in, and using that you need to find out what kind of layer 2 issues can be there. So that really helps in knowing each and every state and how these state changes take place. Okay, and this is the last question. There is no connectivity between the devices in your network. You suspect the issue is with the trunk link configuration between switches. Which two commands could you use to verify the configuration of the trunk ports? So we have show interface trunk, show running config, show trunking, show VLAN trunk. So there are, you can choose two here. Okay. Yes, the answers are show interface trunk and show running config. So in the running config you can see this, and also in show interface trunk. So these are some of the commands which you need to get very familiar with, because this is when you're troubleshooting, you have to be very good with reading out the outputs and knowing all the show commands that you should be using while troubleshooting. And then the next step would be, after using all these show commands, we go to the debug commands. So these were some of the questions. So with this, I'll go ahead and we're going to show you a troubleshooting lab demo, and this will help you understand what kind of troubleshooting scenarios are there in the T-Shoot course, and it is also going to show you how our e-learning course looks like, and you can have a look and see how exactly these courses are and what kind of labs you can expect in the troubleshooting.
I'm now going to do a demo of a troubleshooting lab. This lab is from the T-Shoot course, and you can expect similar labs in your T-Shoot exam as well. And the topics that are covered in this particular lab are mostly the ones that you've seen in your CCNA course. So let's get started here. Second, troubleshooting at Secnic Networking Limited. Changes are always taking place at Secnic Networking Limited. Just yesterday, your colleague Peter tried to make some upgrades on the network. Kimberly, the user on PC1, cannot access internet. Peter is unable to offer further explanation on this issue. So here we see in this ticket that we first give you a scenario and explain you what exactly has happened, and based on that there is an issue which is being addressed. So you need to resolve this issue. So for that, let us look at what all is provided here in this troubleshooting ticket. So if you need to test internet connectivity, use IP address 209.165.201.225. Before we get started, we need to hit here on initialize. With this, we will get access to all the devices which are there in this network. Also, let's have a look at the topology here. So we see we have a router R1 which connects to the internet. Then this router connects to a distribution switch DSW1, which in turn connects to ASW1 and ASW2 You have end users PC1, 2, 3 and 4. The issue here is that PC1 cannot get to internet. Now, apart from the topology, you will also see some more information provided. We have job aids. Now, job aids will explain you in detail about the device connections. So, in this one, you can see how the port connections are. Then we will also give you information about the routing, what routing protocol we are running and how exactly the routing is, IPv6 routing information, and finally we have information about the VLANs. For this particular one, you can see that PC1 is in VLAN 10 and the gateway will be on DSW1. Apart from job aids, we provide you command list, which will give you some of the commands that you can use in this lab. Shared session, if you wish to record your session and share it with others who are using the same e-learning product. We have hints in case you're stuck at on a particular ticket and you need some help, you can go for it. So now let's get started with the troubleshooting here. So we know that PC1 is not able to get to internet. So we get to PC1. Now we'll try and ping the IP address which is given here to test the connectivity. And this is how we will verify this issue. So we do ping 209.165.201.225. As you can see, we are not able to ping this IP address. Now next what we can do is we can go ahead and do a trace route that will help us identify where the issue is in the network. So trace route 209.165.201.225. So these are some ping and trace route as you've already studied in CCNA. These are some of the troubleshooting tools that we use to identify where the issue is in the network, to verify the issue. So these are very important tools and going ahead you will be using it a lot. So as you can see, we first get to this IP address 192.168.10.1, which is the gateway. You will find this information in the job aids. Then we see that the packet is looping between 172.16.100.1 and 172.16.100.2. So this seems to be an issue here. So we need to go hop by hop and see where these IP addresses are. So let's first go to the first device, DSW1. We'll do a show IP interface brief to see what IP addresses it has. Only want to see the assigned IPs. So as you can see, this is 192.168.10.1, which was the first hop. We also saw this IP address here, 172.16.100.2. So it is the IP on E00 interface of DSW1. Now this is the interface that connects to router R1. Now let's go over to router R1 and have a look at the IP addresses here. Show IP interface brief again. You can see here we have this IP address 172.16.100.1. So this was the one of the IPs that we saw in the trace route. Now what we are seeing here is that PC1 is sending a packet. It goes to DSW1. From R1, the packet goes back to DSW1 and DSW1 is again sending it to R1. So there is a routing loop here which is created. So we need to look at the routing here on R1 to figure out why exactly that is happening, because R1 should ideally send it to the internet gateway. Show IP route. So you see there is a default route here which points to the internet gateway. Again, about this information you will find it in the job aids. Then we have a static route, if you see here, for this particular subnet which points to DSW1. So what we are trying to ping is .225, which is a part of this subnet, and since this is a more specific route, it is going to prefer this one over the default route. So we can even check that. What we do is show IP route for the particular IP that we were trying to test, 165.201.225. So we see it points to DSW1. And if you look at the routing here on DSW1, so DSW1 just has a default route which is pointing to R1. There are no other specific routes. So this is what happens. It goes to R1. R1 is sending it back to DSW1. So what we need to do is go ahead and remove this static route. So let's have a look at what static routes we have. Show run, include IP route. So we have a default route and this specific one. So let's remove this one. No IP route 209.165.201.0. Okay, so we've removed this route now. Let's go ahead and check this. Show IP route. Okay, we do not see the route on R1 now. Now let's go to PC1. Okay, we will again go ahead and ping this IP. Yes, now we are able to ping this IP that we were testing for internet connectivity. So that's where the issue was. The packets were looping here between DSW1 and R1. So because we removed that static route, now it is able to get to the internet gateway. So once you're done with all the tickets which are there in this particular troubleshooting scenario, then you can go ahead and hit on grade my work. That will tell you how many tickets you've resolved successfully and the ones which you've not been able to do. So based on that you get badges here in the e-learning courses. It will be a silver, gold or a bronze badge. Also, once you're done with this course, if you see, there is something called debrief. So when you hit on this, and it will explain each and every step that you see in the troubleshooting ticket and what are the best ways to resolve it. So I would advise that once you're done resolving these tickets, you should definitely go and look at that. It tells you about the best practices and how you should go about each and every troubleshooting ticket which is there. So this is how our T-shoot course looks like. As you can see on the left side we have all these sections. Similarly, you will see in the route and switch courses we have all the topics covered here, and the only difference is that in route and switch we have discovery and challenge labs both. Discovery mostly to teach you each and every topic which is there in the course. For example, if it's EIGRP, it will tell you how to use two routers to configure EIGRP, run some debug, see how hello packets are exchanged. So that helps you to learn each and every topic in a lot of detail is there. So that really helps. Apart from that, we have similar challenge labs which are based on the topic that you've learned in that particular lesson, and that will help you to test your learning. So we have similar labs again in the ILT, which is the instructor-led training, and also in the Cisco Learning Labs. So you can go for any of these products and this will give you very good practice and hands-on experience with the labs. I would strongly recommend these, and it is really good products for you that will help you in getting your CCNP. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Nikita, for giving us that information. So now let's talk about how to prepare for CCNP routing and switching. I know we've touched on some items today with our success stories, as well as what Nikita just shared in regards to the e-learning that's available. But I'd like to talk to you about all the tools that are available and kind of guide you through your next steps. So when we think of preparation options for CCNP routing and switching, you can do the self-pace option. What I mean there is you can train at your own pace. maybe, after work, if you're not able to go to a class, for example. Maybe do some e-learning, Cisco Press, things of that nature. If you want to do instructor-led, which means you have a hands-on component with a subject matter expert by your side, instructor-led training is an option. And then if you wanted to blend both of those options, so whatever's going to work best for you in regards to your situation, your learning style, and your budget. So here we can see for self-paced learning tools, we've just outlined here the e-learning, which you just saw the T-Shoot component, and the benefit that that provides you. We also have learning labs that allow you to really get some good lab time as well. Practice exams, much like the questions that we went through today. And then the Cisco Learning Network Store. So essentially the Cisco Learning Network Store is where you're going to be able to find all of these great self-learning tools that Cisco has provided you. Also available for self-paced learning would be actual books or Cisco Press. We've outlined some of those different ones here on this slide. And it's really a great way to enhance your classroom and self-paced training with books that you can reference. There's also some video courses as well if that learning medium is helpful for you. And then also, as I mentioned, instructor-led training. So you can learn in person, meaning going to, let's say, a learning partner that we have. Any of those are across the globe. And actually being in a classroom with peers just like you. You could also have learning labs like we talked about, where you could do additional hands-on training while you're in the instructor-led training. And then, as I mentioned, the learning partners are there and the instructors are there, so you really have someone who is a subject matter expert by your side to guide you through the knowledge and skills that you are looking to obtain. And then last but not least, as I mentioned, if you wanted to do self-paced training, if you want to do instructor-led training, it's really your choice. You have options. So you can determine, based on your learning style and budget and time, what's going to be the best option for you as you determine what your future strategy will be. And as I mentioned earlier, the Cisco Learning Network is a great resource for you in which you can collaborate with other engineers just like yourself who are pursuing certifications at all different levels. You can see there's over 850,000 members. So there is free study materials are there. There's like a social component, so you can talk to other people who are in the same situation you are trying to prepare, and maybe they can help you, right? There's training videos, technical seminars, and then for each of the exams, there's topics so you know exactly what's going to be covered on each exam. Okay, and then here I'd also like to talk to you about resources. You will see in the interface that we're in today, there is some URLs that you can actually download in your resources panel, and I've also listed those here on this slide. So just to kind of reiterate where you would find all this material on the Cisco Learning Network, we have placed all of these great tools here for you. And then last but not least, when you're ready to take your exam, we've also got the link to Pearson VUE, which is our testing administrator. Again, all of these are downloadable and as a resource for you in your resources panel. Okay, and now I'll put it over to Greg so we can get into the question and answer portion of the webinar.
Great.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks a lot, Don. Yeah, so I've seen, I think we're up to 140-ish questions. And let's cover some of the common ones. First of all, a lot of you are asking about the recertification or the amount of time that you can spend if you're trying to pursue your CCNP. Obviously, it's a 3-exam certification, and so the important clock that you need to keep track of is the CCNA, the fact that your CCNA remains active, right? So whenever you got your CCNA initially, there's a 3-year certification timer. After 3 years, that becomes inactive. Now, in order for you to recertify and keep your CCNA active, you can take, there's different directions you can follow. You can take a different CCNA, the same CCNA. You can take a higher level CCNP. So a lot of you are asking, how quickly do I need to complete my CCNP? And the answer is really, as long as your CCNA is active. So here's the scenario. If you've used up 2 years on your CCNA, you have 1 year to go before it becomes inactive. Then obviously you need to complete any one of the 3 route switch or T-shoot exams prior to that 1 year time point. Once you do that, once you complete the route exam, for example, now you've reset the clock on your CCNA. You have 3 more years before your CCNA will expire. So you have that amount of time, in theory, to go after your next CCNP exam. Now, so if you wanted to say, what's the longest I could take between starting and completing my CCNP, I think the answer is 6 years. You could take an exam, reset the clock on your CCNA, wait 3 years, take a second exam, reset the clock again on your CCNA, and then hit the 3rd one before it expires. Now, that's not a very recommended or desirable strategy, because one of the key items you need to be aware of on CCNP is, and if you've looked at the blueprint, you know this, the T-shoot exam really does depend on and pull from information that you've mastered in the route and the switch blueprints. And so if you were to stretch out that timeline too long, obviously you'd have a hard time making it through the troubleshooting. It's just natural for people not to recall stuff after several years. And so, but as far as the absolute clock time that you have, again, just think of it in terms of making sure that your CCNA itself does not expire. We're seeing other questions here about the versioning. Now, Ralph, you're asking about this. And I have to think back when we released version 2. I believe we had a complete parity, so you could mix and match any version 1 and version 2 exams for that 6-month period when we had both available. So that still would hold. So if you've got a T-shoot version 1 that you've completed, and again you have an active CCNA, you should be able to go forward and take the version 2 route and the version 2 switch, right? And the combination of those 3 will get you your CCNP. That's an unusual path. Most people take T-shoot last, so congratulations to you for passing that first. Some of the questions in here, so hopefully that answers the recertification and how long you can take. I did mention, some of the people asked about what's the typical duration people require to get through their CCNP, and it's somewhere in the 4 to 6, maybe 9 months at sort of the high end per exam. Obviously, it depends if you've passed on your first try, but that's the typical preparation time frame. So, if you work diligently, you can get through all 3 exams in less than a year. But some people take 18 months or something like that to get through all 3. One of these I can answer easily is, and we had talked about the training products from Bruce here. What's the difference between the Cisco e-learning learning labs and the CLN Premium? So the cool thing about the lab-centric learning that we've been focusing on at CCNP and in the new self-study products is that whether you buy the learning labs as a standalone product or whether you buy the e-learning, in both cases you're going to get exposure to the exact same lab modules. The key difference is that within the e-learning product, obviously there's a lot more. It's a comprehensive self-study product. it also has a grading engine, and so you can benefit from that in terms of once you complete a lab, it'll give you feedback as far as whether you did things properly and efficiently. So those are, at the bare minimum, if you really want to get hands-on experience, you really want to cement the concepts, the Cisco Learning Labs can do that for you if you've got access to, Cisco Press or the experience and the knowledge already, and you really just want to go, get some console time. But if you want to have something that will bring you all the way from your CCNA, skills and typical knowledge all the way up to prepare you for the CCNP, then I definitely recommend the e-learning product. It's a fantastic, like I said, totally comprehensive and very, very rich in labs. You saw when Nikita was sharing a bit ago some of the sort of UI and sort of some of the capabilities, but you can also go right up now onto the CLN store, and there's a demo button you can push on any of the e-learning products, and you get access to one of the modules. You can go through it and take a look and feel of it, and check out the labs. And I definitely recommend that. A couple questions have come in about, can you take CCNP if your CCNA has expired? No, that unfortunately the prerequisite for any CCNP is to have an active CCNA. Now the good news is if you're preparing for a CCNP, you probably aren't going to have to do much extra work or heavy lifting to go back and pass your CCNA. But yeah, we absolutely want people to have a sort of continuity and obviously have a prerequisite foundational knowledge that we can't test the sort of 7-layer model and some of the real fundamentals in the amount of questions that we have at the CCNP. So we have to validate some of the skills at the lower level and then validate some of the other skills at the professional level. Here's a question, Nikita, maybe you could help me out with. It's about, is Cisco's viral product equivalent to emulate most topologies for the CCNP? I think the viral product today still has only layer 3 functionality. And in contrast to the Cisco Learning Labs or the e-learning product that you saw a minute ago, which has both layer 2 and layer 3. So I think that's the one deficiency still. It's something that's on the roadmap for sure, but I don't think it's available yet.
Yeah, that's correct. So viral is still, in the testing phase, so all the capabilities are still not functioning great. So right now we are using IOL, which has both layer 2 and layer 3 capabilities. But viral, definitely, I think, in another 6 months or a year's time, it would be a great platform.
Thank you. Yes, I think we answered that first question. IOU, so GNS3, not an endorsed Cisco option, obviously. IOU and IOU definitely has the 15.2 feature set, so it's a current software virtual environment that has all of the bells and whistles for layer 2 and layer 3. So that's definitely where we would point you towards. Let's see. Cost of the virtual labs, I think they're about $60 for the CCNA and $75 for the CCNP. Those give you typically 50 hours of access time. So a good amount of time. You'll definitely have time to get through all of the 20 or 30 lab modules that are in there, and with a little bit of cushion to go back if you need to. Let's see. Again, people have asked about simulator, packet tracer, different things compared to the virtual labs. There really is no comparison. I mean, prior to the virtual labs being available, those were good options, right? They did give you some, without having to go invest in a lot of hardware, you could get the job done with those simulator tools. But there's no need to do that anymore. I mean, the price points come way down for virtual lab access, and in fact, it's so much become sort of part of the mainstream that our CCIE exam actually uses that environment to test in. So there's not even hardware-based infrastructure in the CCIE. So it really is the future. It's today. It's what you ought to be looking at, and it's very competitively priced. compared to any other option. So I would definitely recommend that, and I think everyone on the call realizes that in terms of really learning and committing things to your mind, there's no substitute for the hands-on. There's no substitute for lab time. So that's your most worthwhile investment. So take advantage of the virtual labs. I see a question about Cisco router functionality like DNS, DHCP, different capabilities. I know some of the router platforms can run those, can be proxy DHCP and things like that. I mean, the router is not a server, but some of the more mid-range or high-end ones can do some of that. I don't know, Nikita, if you know like an ISR or which router family would have these kinds of functionalities off the top of your head, or maybe none of them have.
The 2800, the 2600, all the ISRs. So most of the routers actually these days have this functionality, so they can act as a DHCP server. There's some configuration, but yeah, routers are not really servers. They are to connect different subnets. It's for routing. That's the main purpose. But yes, they do have these functionalities.
Right. Yeah. So I guess right tool for the job, I guess, is the takeaway there. Let's see, what's the site for the virtual lab? How much is it to utilize? So the virtual labs are hosted by Cisco, right? So you don't have to invest in any infrastructure. There's no VMs and things that you need to buy and provide. It's all hosted by Cisco. And then again, the price points are in the $60 range for the CCNAs and up to $75. Actually, I'm misquoting. I think it's $75 for the CCNA and up to $100 for the CCNP. Labs. And if you go up to the links that Don provided and that we're going to be sharing with you after this, we'll give you pointers to how to get to those in the CLN store. Let's see. Nikita, Don, you guys see things in here that are more common topics that we haven't covered?
Yeah, I'm looking. Hold on.
Andy, have you seen anything that's we've missed? At the beginning when I was speaking, I probably missed a big batch of incomings, and I don't know if any common threads bubbled up here.
Yeah, I think there are a few questions on, after doing CCNA, whether they can move to security track or voice or data center. So I think that is something that, depends on what your interests are. So if you want to, after CCNA, get into routing, switching, build your foundation here, so you should definitely go for CCNP. But yes, you can move to other tracks as well.
Yeah, thanks, Nikita. And that's one of the points we wanted to highlight is your investment you're making in routing and switching, knowledge and skills and developing is very, universal in terms of which direction you can go in afterward. So, in fact, like I mentioned for the CCNA, some of the other tracks, security, wireless, etc., you can just start. You can use, in fact, the same ICND1. If you want to go in the design direction, for example, the same exact route and switch exams apply. You just change out, instead of troubleshooting, you replace that with the architecture's exam. So you can move into the design, direction if that is your interest. But really, what you learn in routing and switching is going to show up again, over and over, and help you out throughout. So it really is important to have a really strong foundation there. Yeah, a question about virtual labs beyond routing and switching. So I can say that those are coming. We don't have up as available product yet, but there's development. Obviously, the virtual lab origin, I think people can maybe understand, is it's not something that we just went out and built to help with training preparations, although it has great benefit there. But this is actually the direction that the product developers, the iOS development team, uses, right, in terms of moving themselves faster through the feature release cycle. And in some cases, we've got virtual routers and virtual switches. So there's lots of motivations behind it. There's lots of investment and development going on, not just in routing and switching, in security, in wireless, etc. And so you're going to be seeing more and more options come to market with an upcoming announcements. When we revise a certification like security, for example, I can't give you a date, but you'll probably be hearing about a virtual lab option that comes with that. So keep, when those announcements come, part of what you'll hear from the marketing and product managers who own those certifications is, when a virtual lab becomes available, we'll make a lot of visibility to that so that you can take advantage of it. So stay tuned there. Foundational learning guides are enough for study. Do I need official cert guides? That's it's a mix, right? If you've got a decent amount of experience and you're in and out daily using infrastructure, then that probably is enough for you. If you're not immersed in the technology as part of your day job, then really official cert guide and some way to get access and do hands-on is the key. It really is a critical part. You just have to sort of adjust your thinking towards X amount of study, X amount of I'm going to read about protocols and details about the technology, and then I'm just going to spend a certain amount of time thinking through the mechanisms, how the protocols work, how the devices work, and that really is no substitute for that. So that's why I'm, maybe I sound like a broken record here, but really, really important to have some way to get access to some hands-on, either virtual labs, which are, like I said, a very, very effective way, or if you've got, old hardware, if you have access to that, grab it, build up something, and spend time on it. Let's see. I think we're coming up on the. We hit I think a lot of the more common questions, and apologize if we've missed one of yours. Obviously, you can go up onto CLN. Most of you are probably familiar with the community we have, the Cisco Learning Network, right? And the moderators there will, do everything they can to get you answers quickly. If we miss something, they'll contact me or Don or someone else on the team, and we'll work with them to get your specific questions answered if we didn't. So I think we're going to, at this point, consider it to be closed as far as question and answer. So let's put a wrap on it. Conclude the webinar, and obviously we want to thank everyone for taking time today to attend the session. We hope you did find something in here valuable and informative. As I mentioned, this has been recorded, so we'll be posting it in the next 48 hours, so you can go back and listen to something that you missed. And then also, within the next, I think, 24 hours, we're going to be notifying the folks who won. We have a small prize for registering and attending the CCNP Routing and Switching Command Guide booklet. So we'll be notifying you about that if you're a winner. We hope to see you again, obviously, at future webinars or other Cisco events. And most importantly, we encourage everyone to take control and drive that career of yours forward, and do it by getting certified. There's lots of benefits, and it's going to be something that you're going to be glad you did. So we'll wrap up. Again, the last, I think, point is once we close out here, please just take a couple of minutes to complete the survey. We strongly welcome your comments. It's going to help make these better in the future. And so with that, thanks everyone.